Good morning, everyone. My name's Phil Akilade. I'm the Managing Director of Dine for EMEA and the UK. For those of you who don't know Dine, we're an infrastructure as a service provider specializing in premium DNS and email delivery services. So I'm here to initiate a debate that we think is long overdue in the UK email industry, and that is how the science of deliverability impacts your email return on investment. Our specific message is quite a in-your-face one, and that is that neglecting the back-end email delivery processes and metrics can have a very negative impact on your return on investment. And that impacts you regardless of whether your email operation is run in-house or whether it's run by an outsourced ESP. To explain why, let's look at how email has been changing and evolving. Fair to say that I think that everyone would agree that email has been changing and has been evolving for many, many years. But in recent times, there's been quite a blurring of the lines between bulk and transactional mail. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, transactional mail is mail that is triggered by a customer action on a web application. And by definition, these are highly personalized email messages. Now, as web apps become more and more sophisticated, this trend to transactional will be increasing and continuing because clearly transactional mail is much more personalized, much more engaging, and is much more cost effective for marketeers in general. Now, there's a few people in the audience who look like they've been around maybe as long as myself, and you can probably remember the bad old days when we used to send bulk mail campaigns to purchase data lists. I know there's hardly anyone that does that now, but back in the day, it was done, and I'm sure we'd all put our hands up to that. Now bulk mail is much more sophisticated. Bulk mail is about sending mail to double opted-in, highly engaged lists. It's about optimizing the content of that mail by split testing across a myriad of different factors and options. And it's about optimizing the best times of the day to actually send that mail. You as marketeers know that there are clearly good times to send mail to specific customers, and you ideally want to get that mail to them at the right time. So by definition, bulk mail is becoming more and more personalized. It's becoming more and more like transactional mail. Of course, the main reason that we're here actually talking about email return on investment is because of the negative impact of spam over the years. The definition of spam is changing. It used to be that, again, back in the day, that it was only the Viagra and the free money peddlers that had to worry about being labeled as a spammer. But today, now even double opted-in email can be marked as spam due to problems with sending cadence, engagement levels, and IP reputation. ISP spam filtering, as a result, has become much more complex because spam, by definition, is also becoming more complicated and sophisticated. So it's this increase in the amount of email and the type of email that's making the overall management of the email operation much more complex than it used to be. We think of the email operation as having two parts, a front end and a back end. The front end, you'd recognize all of these components, list management, template design, the simpler components, but the more up-to-date, you're looking at user engagement optimization, behavioral triggers, and split IP engagement. Where the back end, where we specialize, we break the back end down into three main areas: the email infrastructure layer, the delivery piece, and the analytic piece at the back. Now, in spite of that level of complexity, you would think, wouldn't you, with all that front end and all that back end complexity that's been building up over the years, that we'd be pretty good at delivering and getting emails into the inbox. Well, we know from a whole range of surveys that, in actual fact, only 4 out of 5 emails are actually delivered and get into your customers' inboxes. That means that, by definition, 1 out of every 5, 20% of your emails that you're investing your money in, that money's been wasted. And that's not even thinking about whether or not the majority of mails that you want to get to your customers at the right time are actually getting there. So by definition, money has been left on the table. So what impact is that having over on email return on investment? Well, it doesn't take a scientist to work out that if you increase the cost of complexity, or that if you increase the complexity, costs will rise. And it's clear as well that if 20% of your mails are not reaching the inbox, then that's not having a really good impact on your return on investment. It's no surprise that the big ESPs are generally very good at the front-end email operational components, because clearly their DNA is in marketing. However, it's clear that that front-end piece isn't really enough. Otherwise, our results in terms of delivery to the inbox would be far better. 4 out of 5, I don't think, is really good enough. So it does make sense just to focus on the back-end factors that influence the outcome of inbox delivery. So one of the big questions is, what is deliverability? There isn't any one standard definition about what deliverability actually is, and it's a topic that the debate goes on and on and on. It's very clear, though, that what we are looking to try and achieve is the delivery of mails into our inbox. And what's perhaps not so obvious are that there are a whole range of processes, both front and back end, that influence that deliverability. What we're very interested in are the back end processes. They are around the areas I just mentioned: email infrastructure, the delivery expertise piece, and the analytics at the very back. Looking at the email infrastructure just for a while, how does the email infrastructure influence deliverability and therefore return on investment? Well, if your sending platform can't manage the volume that you need to send, and/or it can't manage the sending intensity, i.e. the burstability, then clearly that again is going to have a negative impact on your ROI. Because if you can't get the mails out from your platform through your infrastructure, then by definition you're missing out. How your sending frequency is configured to different ISPs obviously has an impact on reputation as well. The scalability of the platform. Many of our customers have come to us as a result of having difficulties with the capability of their platform to deal with the volumes of mails that they're having to send. And it's obvious that unless you have some built-in redundancy or reliability, again into your operation, then you are going to miss out, because IT systems fail and email systems fail. Now, it's this part of the back-end email delivery operation that's often the most challenging, because it can appear to be the least scientific. It's difficult to define deliverability because there's so many inputs. First of all, there's no direct feedback from the ISPs as to whether or not your emails have actually got there, and there clearly are so many inputs into deliverability overall. And that's why we refer to this area as delivery black box, and others refer to it as a black art. Now, your in-house team or your ESP should be considering how to tailor the frequency of ISP communications to avoid being marked as a spammer to your key ISPs. They should also be looking out and proactively monitoring your IPs to make sure that you're not being placed on blacklists. And they should be able to manage your bounce reclassifications, again, to avoid customers being deleted from your list that really shouldn't be. So how do analytics influence deliverability and therefore return on investment? Well, without metrics, it's impossible to know whether your sending operation is successful or not. But with a full suite of analytics, you have all the data to be able to analyze the key parts of your sending operation that need to be improved or need attention. For example, opens and clicks provide a measure of engagement. Complaint and bounce data helps you to clean your lists. Seed monitoring provides insight to inbox placement with individual ISPs. And X headers allow us to track the relative success of different groups within a campaign. And all of this data can be analyzed and acted upon to improve deliverability. Now, here's a schematic that shows the range of data capture stages where your teams can be monitoring and capturing data to improve deliverability. At the sender level, there's a whole range of content checking that can be done. Clearly, you can be monitoring your sending volumes and your sending frequency, and you can be looking at historical engagement levels. At the ISP gateway stage, you're looking to measure bounces, deferrals, and ISP blocks and grey listing. At the inbox, you're obviously looking at, if you have access to this, seed monitors, open rates, click-throughs, complaints, unsubscribes, and conversions. And from a third-party perspective, you're looking at blacklisting, whitelisting, feedback programs, and your IP reputation. So these are all the wide range of data capture points where your team should really be monitoring at each of these stages. Now, assuming your team is collecting data across all these data capture points, the data then needs to be interpreted. And this is where your deliverability team come in. This is our director of deliverability back in the States. His name's Steve Wheeler. Very handsome gentleman, I'm sure you'd agree. But people like this are gold dust. This chap's been in the marketplace for well over 10 years. He leads a team who's got a similar amount of experience. So these guys are very difficult to find and very difficult and very expensive. The challenge is, though, that with a team, what we're relying on at this stage are people's experience as opposed to automated logical systems. So at this stage, their work is more of an art rather than a science. So what we had to do with Steve is convert his experience into algorithms, and as a result, try to automate the deliverability advice that he would give out on a one-on-one basis and try to build that into our platform. Now, once we start to iterate and automate this back-end data across all these data points, that's when we start looking at and getting into a classic continuous improvement loop. And we move into the world of deliverability science. Now, every iteration of the delivery cycle means that we're able to collect more data, understand more about the sender and their unique sending marketplace. And we're then able to make much more incisive recommendations about sending practices and the processes which impact deliverability. So here's a little case study on one of our clients who came to us who, when they first came to us, had an estimated inbox delivery rate of 75%. Now, the challenge they had was that they suspected that not all their mails were getting into the inbox, but they didn't actually know. So they used some of our seed monitoring systems to try to understand or to estimate where they were, and that's where we found the 75% figure. Following the advice that they were given by our deliverability team, we were able to improve that estimated delivery inbox rate to 90%. And that had an impact, keeping all the other components the same, of delivering an extra £86,000 in the bottom line. And that was purely from getting more mails into the inbox. And that was stage one. There was clearly more that we could do, and we're working with this client over time to continue improving that. So that just gives an insight to, just by improving your inbox placement by that percent, how much of a difference that can make to the bottom line. So here's a quick teaser for you. If you accept the premise that transactional mail is on the increase, and that by definition those mails are driven through the web app, and that much of the communication with your customers, again, is driven through the web app, then there's a question, do you really need as much of the front-end email operation? Many of our clients have come to us for this reason alone. And this is something that your CEO or your CFO may be interested in. If you're able to, again, by definition, reduce your front-end email operational costs, and as a result, improve the deliverability with more of a back-end metric focus, then that means that you should be able to increase the revenue from your existing communications. That means you're really able to improve your ROI from two directions. One, because you're reducing costs, and two, because you're increasing revenue. So, in conclusion, just like to remind you, don't forget the back-end operation and metrics, the impact an experienced deliverability team can make, how the combination of data, experience, and the scientific method can add significantly to your email return on investment. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and your attention. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to take some now. Thank you. Thanks.